After not seeing him for a month, John just shoved a divorce lawyer's business card at me without even asking if I was okay or how I was feeling. Divorcing a wife who doesn't work, pay me $1,000 a month as alimony. Sounds good, take care. John chuckled as he said this. Standing beside him, Emily wrapped her arm around his, wearing a similar smug expression. Fine, let's divorce then, I said so casually that John seemed a bit surprised. But he quickly shared his smile with Emily. Good thing John isn't much of a thinker. It makes my plan easier to execute. After the divorce papers got approved, I decided to start my revenge plan on both of them. I will make them cry as a celebration of my recovery. My name is Sarah Wolf. I'm a 47-year-old illustrator and also a children's book author. I just love drawing. I have 2 childhood friends, John and Emily. They're important to me, and John is also my husband. It all started when John asked me out as I was heading to a different college after high school. I was surprised. I thought he was into Emily, but I couldn't say no to a confession from John, whom I had secretly liked. After some thought and consultation with Emily, I accepted John's proposal. Emily's behavior had been a bit problematic since our teens, but she was still a dear friend to both John and me. However, Emily had a tendency to snatch other people's boyfriends and then dump them once they became obsessed with her, causing problems repeatedly. Her parents were concerned, so John and I often spent time with her to watch over her. John and I got married when we were 25. 4 years later, Emily brought her fiancé into our lives. His name was George, a professional working for a top-tier company. Nice to meet you, Sarah and John. I've heard so much about you. Looking forward to our future together. George was very polite, and we all got along immediately. We would get together during holidays and vacations, taking trips or going on long train rides to enjoy some drinks. However, things started falling apart after Emily got pregnant 2 years into her marriage. John and I originally had many siblings, so there was no worry about it. So we decided we didn't need children. Both of us loved kids but weren't keen on actively caring for them. Besides, we loved our freedom to travel and enjoy drinks. We often found it heartwarming to see families with children, but it was never more or less than that. When Emily announced her pregnancy, John's attitude started to change. He quit smoking because Emily said she couldn't stand the smell and even offered to drive her to doctor's appointments using his vacation days. I warned him, George might get upset if you're always with Emily. But John argued back, you have work, don't you? She's our childhood friend and she's reaching out for help. You're heartless. I said, I've been buying things and helping where I can, but going with her to the obstetrician is crossing the line. When I said that, John frowned and then glared at me. Why? Because Emily wants it, right? She says she's anxious about the checkup. I can't just let her go alone if she's anxious. All the more reason for George to go with her, right? If you go with her every time, it's almost like you're the father of the baby in her belly. John, you're jealous. You're not going to get pregnant anyway, so what's the problem? He didn't take my concerns seriously and instead started snapping, saying I was being annoying. We had hardly ever fought during our marriage, but things changed when Emily got pregnant. Our arguments increased, and that didn't change even after Emily gave birth. In fact, John started spending even more time with Emily and their child, Emma. But when Emma was 6, an incident occurred related to Emma's graduation ceremony attendees. The day before the graduation, John suddenly started rummaging through the closet. John, what are you doing? Have a meeting tomorrow? John's workplace had a casual dress code, but there was a rule to wear a suit during client meetings, so he always kept a few suits ready. But they were all thrown on the bed now. No, just trying to decide what to wear for the graduation ceremony. What? You're seriously thinking of attending the graduation? Yeah, George can't make it. Emily asked me to. That's absurd. No matter how you look at it, I inadvertently raised my voice in denial. John's face turned sour. I knew he occasionally picked Emma up from kindergarten, and I had done so myself when asked. Yet it was nonsensical for a childhood friend who wasn't even a biological parent to attend a graduation ceremony. What? You still doubt me and Emily? I'm disappointed you can't even help out. That's not the point. Anyway, I'm attending the graduation tomorrow, so iron a shirt properly. John said that and abruptly ended the conversation, leaving me behind and going to the bedroom. I had no choice but to call Emily. Hello, Emily. About tomorrow, sorry, I'm borrowing John. But won't George be upset about the graduation attendance? Sarah, what are you talking about? Obviously, I haven't told George that the graduation is tomorrow. I'll tell him after the ceremony. I was shocked to learn that George didn't know about the graduation schedule. Upon further questioning, it seemed Emily hadn't informed George about any of the kindergarten events so far. John had been acting as the father at the kindergarten, which made me dizzy with its selfishness. Wait a minute, Emily. Isn't that extremely unreasonable? It's disrespectful to George. And just because he's a childhood friend, what's wrong? Sarah, you're scary. Well, see you tomorrow. Emily unilaterally hung up the phone, and I was trembling with anger. Still, in the end, I ironed a shirt, prepared a tie, and the next morning saw John off to Emma's graduation ceremony. Since then, Emily and John started going out more frequently, from once a month, to once a week, then to 3 times a week. Eventually, even George seemed to have some suspicions. One day, while John and Emily were out, he visited our house alone. I'm sorry for visiting you late at night. There's something that's been bothering me. Is it about the two of them? Yes. I would like you to take a look at this. George showed me the GPS history he had installed in Emily's car. It showed she had been staying at a hotel 3 times a week, all those days she was out with John. Just by looking at George's face, I understood what that meant. What do you want to do, George? I want to take revenge on those two. Me too. I can't forgive them for betraying us. After all this time, we started planning our revenge on them secretly. First, I started by increasing my income because I had been saving by doing housework and taking care of Emma. My income had drastically decreased. George switched to working from home, and when Emily and John would go out, he would bring Emma to my house and we would take care of her together. Neither Emily nor John realized that we knew about the relationship. We were able to gather solid evidence. Once we had collected enough evidence and were ready to take our revenge, we discovered a shocking truth about Emma. George and I struggled with the decision, but we both agreed we didn't want to hurt young Emma. So we decided to wait until she was an adult to take our revenge. However, even though we decided to endure for 10 years, I was struck with a serious illness. I needed long-term hospitalization, and even at best, I wouldn't be discharged for at least 2 years. Although I could work from the hospital room, it was certain that I would have to reduce my workload. After informing George about the situation, I consulted John. However, John's reaction was no different from when we were making small talk. I'll visit you once in a while. I felt that John no longer had any affection for me, as he didn't even ask about my condition or the name of the disease. In reality, John only visited once a month or once every 2 months. And after Emma's 15th birthday, she started acting strangely. Although she used to visit me almost every day right after I was hospitalized, she became distant after her 15th birthday. However, neither George nor I could figure out why, and we were puzzled. Even when we asked Emma, she just said, "Don't worry about it." However, we ended up learning the reason from John, who rarely showed up. "Whoever doesn't work, pay me $1,000 a month." John smiled widely, grinning from ear to ear. Beside him, Emily wrapped her arms around John, wearing the same pleased expression. "Fine, then let's get a divorce," I said casually, which seemed to surprise John for a moment. But he quickly exchanged smiles with Emily. John wasn't the type to overthink things, so my plan worked perfectly. After I received the notification that the divorce was finalized, I immediately began my plan for revenge against both of them. I was going to make them suffer as a way to celebrate my recovery. First, I asked George to transfer me to a different hospital. Then, I told my lawyer that from now on, they would handle all mediation between the parties. At the same time, George moved closer to my new hospital with Emma and began visiting me every day. Emma still looked gloomy, but I was glad she came every day. Most of my things were already in the hospital room, so I told John to throw away the rest. I didn't want anything they might have touched to be part of my new life. Once the hospital transfer and George and Emma's move were settled, I got a call from John. I had only left my seat for a few minutes, but my phone showed 30 missed calls. Feeling exhausted, I answered the phone. What the hell is going on? Behind John's panicked voice, I could hear the frustrated tone of a real estate agent. Emily's yelling made me feel sick. What do you mean? What's going on? I asked. It's about the house. Why do we have to move out? John shouted, acting like it wasn't his fault. Obviously, because it's my house, I replied coldly. John seemed to have completely forgotten the truth. The house we lived in was actually a room I rented as a workspace when I first started freelancing. At the time, I couldn't afford two places, and John didn't have enough income to live on his own, so he ended up moving into my space. He never paid rent or utilities, only a small amount for living expenses, which wasn't enough. Unfortunately, I had cancelled the lease shortly after submitting the divorce papers because it was far from the hospital I transferred to. I hadn't told John, but the real estate agent said they would contact him. George and Emma suddenly disappeared, and the house has been sold. What are we going to do for a new place? Maybe stay at a business hotel for now, I answered, turning on the speaker and starting work. John yelled in frustration, "Don't screw with me." But then his tone softened, "So when will you transfer the money? We're running low on cash." "What are you talking about?" I asked. "I told you to pay $11,000, John said. "I don't recall agreeing to that," I answered nonchalantly. He screamed incoherently on the other end. Apparently, John thought he could get money from me and had been spending recklessly. Even if he had $11,000 left, how was he going to survive the rest of the month? "Hey, don't stay silent. Say something." "There's really nothing to say," I told him. John was dumbfounded, but soon he started yelling again, getting more and more annoyed. Trying to sound as cheerful as possible, I said, "Anyway, we're basically strangers now. Please don't contact me anymore. You'll hear from my lawyer." "Lawyer?" "Hey, wait," John tried to respond, but I hung up without listening. He called several times, but I ignored him, and eventually, the calls stopped. John's childishness surprised me. I never expected him to cause trouble for others without concern. I sighed deeply. A few months later, after a brief hospital discharge, I visited John's parents' house. In front of me were John and Emily, both looking small and nervous. "You told them your parents?" John snapped, clearly upset. "I just told them we're divorced," I said. John glared at me but shrank under his father's stern gaze. Actually, I had a good relationship with my in-laws, often visiting and eating with them when John wasn't around. Despite being so well-liked, I felt guilty not sharing the details of our divorce, so I visited them. "Is it true you're remarrying, Emily?" "Yes, we're starting over as a family," Emily said. "What are you talking about?" "Your only family is Sarah," John retorted. "She's not my family anymore." John's words made his father frown. John shook his head and handed me a bill from a nearby luxury hotel. "What's this?" I asked. "It's the hotel bill from where we stayed," John said as he collapsed dramatically. My mother-in-law gasped, unable to believe what she saw, looking at John and Emily with disbelief. "Why are you so angry?" "The family is changing because I'm getting married. Plus, you'll have a grandchild, your blood relative. Aren't you happy?" Neither of my in-laws believed it, and Emily acted like she didn't understand the problem. which gave me chills. Then Emma, who had been quietly playing with her phone, spoke up sharply to Emily. My dad is the only one I consider my father. Blood or not, he's my dad. But you know, John always went to your school events, even when he wasn't invited. Dad always said I was his daughter, so I am. Emma glared at Emily, then sat beside me with concern. When I found out, I thought you'd hate me, but Dad said you didn't. So I came today. Emma's words brought tears to my eyes as she hugged me tightly. Though Emma was the result of John and Emily's affair, she was a child I'd cared for 15 years. How could I not love her? I then asked Emily why she wasn't surprised that Emma was John's daughter. Before Emily could answer, George appeared. Actually, you're not divorced yet, he said, holding divorce papers. Emily and John hadn't finalized the divorce yet, despite Emily's claim. John laughed bitterly at us. You two are together now. Too bad you can't live on George's salary alone, he sneered. George earns double what you think, I replied, ignoring John's insults. John doubted I could work while sick, but I laughed. You don't know about my income, do you? It's more than a part-time job. My annual income is $500,000. John's mouth dropped open in shock, and Emily was stunned. Over the past 10 years, I became a popular children's book author, earning more from essays, interviews, and adaptations. A film version is even planned. Liar. Want to see proof? I showed Emily my bank account, with regular large deposits. Emily was speechless. Sarah, let's make up, she said. Go ahead and get married, but I'll be taking compensation for damages, I replied, taking Emma's hand and saying goodbye to my in-laws before leaving. John originally worked at my father-in-law's company but was fired for lying about his sales trips. My father-in-law forced him to work on a fishing boat. John, who hated outdoor work, called me several times, but I told my father-in-law each time. Eventually, the calls stopped. Emily lost custody to George and divorced John. She lived alone in a rundown apartment, unable to find steady work since marriage. She struggled with multiple part-time jobs to pay living expenses and child support. Emma worked hard to study abroad and attend a prestigious university. Her dream is to translate my picture books and share them worldwide, which makes me proud. As for me, my picture books sell well, and offers for animations and merchandise are increasing. My illness is progressing well, although I'm still hospitalized. My doctor said I might be able to leave next year. One more thing, George and Emma visit me daily. George recently confessed his feelings and asked about remarriage. I haven't decided yet, but I admit I have feelings for him. He wants to live with me after I leave the hospital. While thinking about my answer, I work on my picture books every day, hoping for a happy future. Today, I weave stories again.